Hello, I'm Game Retainer, and in this video I'll be going over the best locations to visit for finding books, magazines and schematics in 7 Days to Die. Most of the locations I'll feature will be on the Navezgane map, and when I do feature a location on the map I'll put the coordinates at the top of the screen. But with that said, let's just dive straight in. Before we jump into the entries, there are a couple of things you can do to increase the efficiency when it comes to finding magazines, books and schematics. Wearing the nerd outfit will give you between a plus 5% and a plus 50% chance to earn an extra point when reading a magazine. Also, intellect mastery is really helpful because rank 2 gives you a 25% chance to find a book, magazine or schematic in any loot container, and rank 3 gives you a 50% chance to gain 2 skill points when reading a magazine. The downside of this is to get both of these you'll need to have reached intellect level 8 first. To give yourself an extra chance of finding something nice, you can always work on improving your loot stage. You can do this by using things like the Treasure Hunters mod, the Rogue Hood, and by investing points in the Lucky Looter. Now let's start looking at the POIs. First on the list we have the Book Barn. This is a tier 1 POI, and if you're playing on Navezgane then you'll find it in the town of Dyersville. Since it is just a tier 1 POI, you're not going to find all that many books here, but since this is one of the POIs that can be given out as a trader mission, you can double dip it and walk away with twice the amount of books. Next we have Country Cracker Book. This is a tier 0 POI, so the difficulty depends entirely on the biome that you'll find this POI in. One thing to keep in mind is all of the POIs on this list, the number of book piles and bookshelves you'll find will vary because each slot has a chance of spawning books every time the POI is refreshed. But it's not uncommon to find around 10 book piles or bookshelves that you can loot, making it a pretty nice one to visit for a little boost. The McPherson UFO Museum is a tier 2 POI, and on the Navezgane map it's located slightly north of Dyersville. This one's pretty easy because the majority of the books are located right through the front door, and you're not going to find a whole lot, but you will find a few piles, which is quite nice. Putting books and magazines to one side for a minute. If you venture into the barn on the side of the building, then you'll find a makeshift UFO. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose, but it does look cool, so I thought I'd mention it. Next is one of the best ones, in my opinion. This is the Crack-A-Café. It's a tier 3 POI, and it's pretty well stocked with all things books. Clearing this one isn't too difficult, and as you can see, the main floor, with it being a bookshop, unsurprisingly contains lots of bookshelves. If you make your way to the back where you'll find the main loot, make sure that you look around because there are plenty of cracker book boxes on shelves and just sort of tucked away, and they're quite easy to miss. Moving on, we have Montgomery Public School. This, believe it or not, is a tier 0 POI, so it's very easy to clear. Whilst looking at the front of the building, look up to the second floor because that's where you'll find the library. Considering it is a tier 0 POI, as you can see, there is a respectable amount of reading materials up for grabs at this one. Since it's a school, you'll also find plenty of desks and filing cabinets, which can be pretty good for finding some extra books. Most tier 5 POIs will contain quite a lot of reading material, however Grover High is among the best. It is a tier 5, so it is difficult to clear, but if you're feeling brave then it's very good for getting books, magazines and schematics. As you can see, you'll find the main loot through the front door, so if you want to cheese it you can. Just be warned that everybody and their mother will spawn. But if you make your way past the main loot and take a left, you'll find a library, which has books, obviously, because it's a library. Also check out the classrooms because there are plenty more bookshelves, desks and filing cabinets that obviously have books and magazines and schematics. Next is Rogue Nerd's Refuge, and before the outbreak this was a library, so as you can imagine, it has books. This one's a tier 0 POI, so it's very easy to clear, and as you can see, there's plenty of stuff to read. The main library can be found in the largest part of the building, and it spans across 2 floors, so it's worth clearing in its entirety because there's quite a lot to be had here. For the most part, the library is pretty bare, but just because of how many shelves there are, you will walk away with a reasonable amount of books. Moving back to schools, we have the Navezgane High School, and just like all the other schools in the game, this is pretty lucrative when it comes to finding books. Now, it is a tier 4 POI, so it can be pretty difficult to clear, but there is a library on the second floor which contains books, unsurprisingly. If you make it to the end of the POI, there is some nice loot, as you can see, because, well, it's a tier 4 POI. The cleverly named Richard Munchz Plaza has its very own Crack-A book on site, and while it's not particularly big, it's surprisingly well stocked. You can find 2 additional Crack-A book boxes in the back room of the Crack-A book, which is quite nice. Now this one is a tier 4 POI and it's a pretty big one, and it can be quite difficult to clear, especially early on, so if you did just want to bust down the front door and make your way inside and grab the books and run away, nobody would blame you. If you want to head straight for the main loot, then you can find it on the building right above the Crack-A bookstore. The Wright Residence is a pretty daunting looking tier 4 POI, but it has its own library in the attic. As you can see in the attic, there are plenty of bookshelves. The largest group of enemies is located way down in a bunker below, so if you just want to grab the books and run away, then that's fine. It's pretty easy actually. Like I just said, the largest group of enemies is located in a bunker beneath, and that's where you'll also find the tier 4 loot. If you make your way through the roller door here and take a right, then you'll end up in the main loot room. The Redchurch Residence gets a quick mention because of how easy it is to walk away with a couple of bookshelves worth of reading materials. It's a tier 3 POI, but if you make your way to the back of the building and break in through here, then as you can see, there are a couple of bookshelves, which is better than nothing. The reason why this place is getting a mention is just because how easy it is to come in, grab the books and leave. There are also a couple of book piles and bookshelves in the basement if you want to grab those as well. As for the main loot, you'll also find it in the basement. So while you're down here, you can grab that too. Moving on, we have Fun Guy Daycare. This is just a tier 2 POI, so it's very easy to clear. And it has more than a couple of book piles and bookshelves inside. The book piles and bookshelves are dotted throughout the POI, so it's worth exploring it in its entirety. As for the main loot, you'll find that in the basement behind some bookshelves. Olgiddy and Brother Advertising is a tier 4 POI and it does deserve a quick mention. Inside this one you'll find multiple offices, each of which contains a desk and a filing cabinet, and if you're lucky they'll be searchable. The main loot can be found on top of the roof here. You press this button to open the door and there you go. If you do want to make it easier, you can just nerdpole your way up and grab the loot and run away. Dishong Tower is a really tough tier 5 POI, but there are some books you can grab with relative ease. If you make your way in through the front, you'll see that there are 2 stores. There's a Savage Country and a little Crack-A book store. Now, the Crack-A book is largely bare, but you will find a few piles, and since it is easy to grab, it deserves a mention on this list. Obviously, if you are feeling brave and you want to clear out the whole POI, then most of the floors will have a few reading materials that you'll find, which is really nice. As for the main loot, you can find it on the top floor on the right hand side in this apartment here. You won't find all of the main loot in that one apartment. There's a couple of the containers that are still on the top floor but not inside that apartment, so have a look around. I am going to give the Crack-A book HQ a mention because it is a bookstore and it does contain books, but I find this one to be rather disappointing, to be honest. It is a tier 5 POI, so it's very tough to clear, but just based on the difficulty and the fact that it is a bookstore, you would expect to find a larger library than this. There are a couple of floors of offices, and as mentioned before, desks and filing cabinets are pretty good places to go for finding reading materials. The basement is where you'll find the main loot for this POI. There are also a couple of Crack-A book crates, so keep an eye out for those. Those Crack-A book crates are quite spread out, so search the whole of the basement because you don't want to miss any of these. St. Mo's Cathedral is an imposing tier 4 POI, to say the least. If you make your way in and down to the basement, you'll find arguably what is the creepiest library in the game. Since it is a tier 4 POI, expect to find a fair few enemies knocking around this one. The main loot's pretty easy to come and grab if you want to grab it and run away, because it's located in this tower right here. Next up we have the White Hill Church of God. This tier 3 POI has a really cool story to tell. But that's not why it's on the list. It has books as well. If you make your way into the back room at the end of the church, you'll find a few bookshelves. While there aren't a lot of bookshelves up here, it takes just 30 to 60 seconds to break down the door, grab these and run away, so it's pretty easy. I do strongly recommend exploring this one fully because the basement has some pretty dark secrets. Also, the basement is where you'll find the main loot. Hearts Rent-A-Car has its very own little Crack-A book store here. and while there's not a huge amount of books inside, if you do make your way out to the back storeroom, you'll find a couple more piles and a Crack-A-book crate. This one is a tier 4 POI, but if you want, you can just break down the door and grab the books. If you do want to grab the main loot, then head to the back of the building and head through this door, and you'll find the loot. When I say to go through the door, it is locked, and the button is inside. However, if you do smash a couple of windows or break down some walls to get in, you'll get the loot pretty easily. Sort of. Next up, we have the Senor Drogas Residence. My pronunciation is terrible, but it's this one. I'd like to thank the guys on Discord for reminding me of this one, because I completely forgot it existed. This tier 3 POI has quite a few bookshelves in the back up the stairs, and right in the first room here. If you continue further on into the POI and make your way into this room, you'll find some more, which is quite nice. Because of the way this one's laid out, if you make your way around the back, hop over these spikes and activate a few zombies, you can force them to run through the spikes and hurt themselves, which is quite nice. If you want to grab the main loot while you're here, then looking at the front of the building in the attic, it is right there. Before I move on to the next entry, I just want to give a quick shout out to Happylachia. I'll put a link to his channel down below. He also makes 7 Days to Die content, and you should go and check him out. Now back to it. US Army Post 7 is one of the most difficult POIs to clear in the game, but there's plenty of books to be had at this one too. You'll find book piles, filing cabinets and desks dotted throughout this POI. You'll also find a fair few bookshelves too. If you're looking for the main loot, then to the left of the main building you'll find a staircase, and at the bottom of the staircase you'll find a vault door. The other side of the vault door you'll find more than a few enemies, so be very careful when approaching this one. If you do just want to cheese it, don't break down the vault door, instead break down this panel here because it will reveal the button to open the door. As for the main loot, it's located right next to the vault door. Just as an FYI, usually to the right of the main loot, behind these panels, there's a little army waiting for you. Located just down the road from the Crack-A-Café, you'll find Special Tots. This preschool has quite a lot of books lying around. It's a tier 2 POI and it's worth clearing because you'll find quite a few bookshelves. Also on the second floor you'll find what looks like a very small library, and while there's not a lot here, some books are better than no books. If you want the main loot, then head up onto the roof and you'll find it nestled in this corner here. Moving on, we have a really great place to come and get books, but unfortunately this one's no longer on the Navezgane map for some reason. Since it is a tier 2 POI, it's very easy to clear, and as you can see, it contains a sea of books. Making your way up to the roof, you'll find the main loot on the other side of this door, and more books. A couple of other things that are worth mentioning are mailboxes. You'll find these on pretty much every residential estate, and more often than not, they'll contain books. Also, once you have yourself a vehicle, it's worth heading to any major built-up area and looking for these newsstands because there's plenty of books here, and you'll find them dotted all throughout built-up areas. Loot bags are also a great source of reading materials. For those who don't know, yellow loot bags are the lowest quality loot bags, and these are dropped by your run-of-the-mill zombies. The next step up are the blue loot bags. These are dropped by tankier regular zombies like Big Mamas and Lumberjacks, and they're also dropped by some of the special zombies like charged ones. The best enemy loot bags are these orange ones. These are dropped by the toughest enemies in the game. Enemies like direwolves, zombie bears, and demolition zombies have a chance of dropping a red loot bag when killed. However, Grace is the only enemy in the game that has a 100% chance of dropping a loot bag. So thank you very much for watching, I hope you found this video useful. If there are any other POIs that you can think of that should have been featured on this list, then let me know down below. One last thing, I didn't put all the tier 5 POIs in this video. That said, most of them are pretty good for magazines. I just selected a couple of ones that I think are the most lucrative. I'll put a link up there to a video that I did all about difficult POIs if you want to check that out. But once again, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.